I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Sean Walker of WetaFX, Visual Effects Supervisor on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. First of all, Sean, congrats on making the shortlist for this year's Oscars. That is a huge achievement amongst so many excellent films vying for the spot in the final five.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's always nice to have the work recognized. So yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. What is now the process from here to present at the Bake Off, I assume online, for your peers in the Academy Visual Effects branch?
Yeah. So Chris Townsend, the Marvel's visual effects supervisor on the show, is the one that will be presenting all the work at the Bake Off. So he'll go ahead and do that, and then there's a bit of a process. The Academy will sort of vote, and I think the top nominations make it through to the top five, which will go through to the actual awards.
It's terribly exciting. It's also what I've found over the years is that the Bake Off can really make or break a film, because even though you may think certain films are shoo-ins, that Bake Off is really important. So I just wonder, even though you're not necessarily spearheading the presentation, as you mentioned, is there something in particular that you are proud of, a sequence or a scene that you really want to highlight for the Academy so they can see how amazing your achievement is on this film?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we focus primarily on the third act battle. So everything in Talo, all the monsters, the beasts, the massive amount of water work. There's a huge amount of digital double work as well, and head and face replacements. Just the sheer volume of work that we had to generate for this whole show, I think was truly astounding, and certainly something I'm extremely proud of. The work itself is also amazing for the amount that we had to do. The water work, I think, is unique to what we've done before as well. So we've never really done water in this way. We've always kind of done natural water interaction. And this is the first time we've really delved into magical water in a way that it almost becomes its own character. So I'm very, very proud of all the water work we did on the show.
Yeah, I'd like to take a bit of a deep dive, pardon the pun, into the water work, because it was astounding to me, and I didn't quite appreciate as a layperson that WetaFX had kind of broken new ground, kind of another pun, on the lake stir up in the dragon battle, for example, and the underwater shots. Can you try to explain to us dummies what you guys did that was different to what we've seen before?
So especially the underwater work, it's the first time certainly that I have used our new proprietary simulation software called Loki, and it's kind of like an all-in-one simulation tool, and it's the first time that I've used it, and we used it for all the underwater bubble work, all the underwater simulations. We used it a little bit because we can also use the same software to render our simulations in the end. So we did a bit of a mix and match, some of our traditional Houdini work mixed in with the Loki work. So that was kind of the newest thing. It gives us a huge sort of base in realism. I think that's the best thing about Loki, is that it's a little bit tricky to work in as a magical element, but you use that as your base. You get your realism, and then you start bending reality a little bit more, and that's kind of how we achieved it.
Yeah, look, you don't have actors in a huge tank of water is really the bottom line here. And that, I've seen water work in plenty of other films and TV shows before, and I've always found it really compelling, but also slightly unbelievable. I knew that it was an effect. In this film, I literally had to tell my kids when we watched it, no, they weren't in a tank. That was just all a visual effect. Is there a challenge from your perspective in that realism and in just pinpointing what the human eye can discern as real or fake?
Especially when it comes to underwater. Yeah, underwater is a very difficult sort of look to achieve. A lot of the specularity that you'll get on your skin, so things like the oily nature of your skin, even highlights in your eyes, all get reduced to pretty much nothing when you're underwater and you're filming underwater. We actually did a few tests before we even went into filming Simu in those underwater shots,
Yeah.
where we filmed them with polarized light. So we tried to remove as much of the specularity as we could. In the same way we do our reference photography when we're generating shaders. So we use polarized light to remove all of the specular, and we use that as a reference, essentially. Going into the shoot, once Simu had been shot, we used these other reference photography shots that we did with some of our artists here at Weta, and essentially line those up as far as the feel for the skin, the way the hair moves. We filmed a lot of it at a higher frame rate as well, just to get that natural flowy motion in Simu's hair. It also helps that the scene was a little bit slower anyway, so where it was kind of slow motion-y. So all in all, I think it kind of played to our favor, the way that it was all shot.
Yeah. Speaking of the third act, the great battle between the Great Protector and the Dweller in Darkness is a highlight. Obviously, two massive dragons fighting over a lake at Ta Lo. It kind of exceeded my expectations. I've seen plenty of dragon battles before, and it's always exciting, and I love it. The score is so loud and propulsive, and it's beautiful to look at. But I found this one to be like really emotionally resonant, and I'm not really sure why. What was your highlight or challenge in getting that particular sequence just right?
So we approached it in a few different ways. The main one being that we wanted to ground it in reality. It didn't matter where we were. We always wanted to film the action as if it was an actual cameraman. So if we were running along the belly of the beast, we wanted to make sure we were cameraman height. We wanted to make sure that if someone was running across it, they would stumble, they would try and keep up with the action. If we were on the side looking up at the beast sucking the soul of the dragon, we wanted to make sure that it was at an angle that felt much more like a POV. I think that really helps connect, the audience to the action, because you feel like you're much more involved and you're there with the action as it's all happening.
Yeah, totally, absolutely agree with that. You've also used certain techniques that many of us may not be familiar with when trying to reset the light and the color palette of Ta Lo. This was filmed in Australia, and I know all too well how bright it is here and how radiant the sun is. I would never have guessed in a million years that set, so to speak, because it was changed so much in post, was actually down under and not in some beautiful mystic Chinese wilderness. So talk us through that change as well.
So yeah, this was possibly the trickiest part of the entire show, technically at least. Monsters, effects, we've kind of done a lot before, and sure, we've got tricky plates before, but this was a challenge for sure. We had we filmed it all in sunny Australia, and the scene itself required a much more sort of overcast and overbearing environment. We wanted to make it feel kind of oppressive, as if the evil that's coming out is, affecting their world around them. And so as soon as the fight starts, we kind of progressively get darker and darker. And yes, so it was all filmed on extraordinarily sunny days, and they, meaning the film crew, managed to shadow a lot of the foreground. They had, insane, massive cranes casting a huge shadow from a giant suspended sheet in the sky. And that shadowed a lot of the foreground action, all the main characters, but pretty much everything from the shadow line of that sheet backwards was getting hit by hard sun. And, there were a few plates that we could grade that away, but 90% of it we just replaced entirely digitally from that point backwards. So a lot of what you see in those Ta Lo battle scenes is just fully digital, even the characters. So we did our best. We wanted to make sure that we retained everything that they shot. So even if we were replacing an on-set character with a digital version, we match moved their action. And so they're all performing the same beats, The only difference is that they're just a digital version of themselves.
That is so seamless, because I just would never have guessed in a million years how digitized or digital those particular sequences are. Then the flip side of that is the beginning of the film. It's actually probably one of my main highlights is the big bus fight scene where Aquafina's character is on there and Simu is fighting these people on a Sydney bus, by the way, which was it's very recognizable to me that it was kind of disguised as a San Francisco bus. What contribution does the VFX team make on a scene like that? That is to me, it seems very practical effects, very physical in terms of tactile, but perhaps maybe it's not. So talk us through that.
For the bus scene, we didn't actually do any of that. So
all right.
We can't speak too much to what they do. We pretty much start from Talo onwards. Okay. But yeah. So I probably won't comment too much on it.
Okay, that's fair enough. Because I think the movie as a whole obviously has more than just one visual effects house that's working on it.
Yeah.
And
very good.
And I'm very curious to see how do you all kind of come together or collaborate at all, or is it completely siloed and you all have to focus on your own separate sections?
No, not at all. So yes, we do. We had a lot of involvement with Rising Sun Pictures as well as Trickster. Not just because we all have our own separate beats in the film, but we also share a lot of assets, and occasionally we share some shots. So that's where things get a little bit interesting. Like, it's fun. All of these visual effects houses are extremely talented, and it's interesting to see how we all do our things differently. The Talo environment, the village itself was built by Rising Sun Pictures, because they are the ones that they did a lot of the daytime stuff. Yeah. And we built everything on the opposite side of the lake, so the Mountain of Souls area. And so we would get together on a call every few weeks and just kind of chat out how we shared each other's assets. We want to make sure that they are, rendering stuff in the same way that we would, and vice versa. And so, it's a hugely collaborative process. Chris Townsend oversees the whole thing, makes sure that we're all, consistent in our looks. And then it gets all the way down to the details where we're sharing a shot. So we would have one of our shots would include, say, Morris, which was exclusively a Trickster asset. So we would build up everything. We would do the entire shot. They would give us Morris as just an element, and we would include him in our composite.
That's actually very common for people who don't know on films like this, where you have a bunch of VFX operations kind of working on separate areas of the film, but still collaborating on the film as a whole, because you're world building for the film and it all has to be seamless. And it's amazing, because the way that the film is presented to the audience, it feels like it's a singular vision, one person who's working on all the effects. So it's kudos to all of you for being able to work with each other in various parts of the world in trying to bring this film to life. It reminds me as well that Weta Effects, also known as Weta Digital back in the day, back in the Lord of the Rings days, has really probably been at the forefront of filmmaking for 20 years, or maybe, I'm not sure exactly how long now. How do you feel about how a powerhouse in New Zealand is kind of leading the whole world in bringing like these magical blockbusters to life?
I'm just honored to be part of it. It's very flattering. Thank you so much. I think Weta Digital is very unique in that we are a house on the edge of the world. We have an insanely talented crew. It's not a small ask either to have people come over here. So when they do, they are really committed to it. A lot of people find that they just enjoy the life here so much that they stick around. A lot of artists like to bounce around a little bit to experience different parts of the world, but we find a lot of people like to stick around. The life and the culture here, I think, is extraordinary. I also think that it's nice that we're all kind of in one place. We all live in and work around Wellington. It's rare to see to go out into town and not see someone from Weta. Yeah, and as far as being the at the forefront, I think we've just been trying as hard as we can to push our own technology. Joe Lettieri is our esteemed senior visual effects supervisor, who's been with us since the Two Towers, has pushed everyone to push the technology. It's rare that we're not working with a new tech that has never seen, that we've never seen before. It's part of our culture. We're always wanting to be be the best, strive to push everything as far as we can, and that passion is just something that I think is thoroughly Kiwi.
Yeah, absolutely is from all the Kiwis that I know. My last question is this. So you have worked on numerous amazing projects, especially in the MCU, like Black Widow and Endgame, Infinity War. You've also worked on the Planet of the Apes series. I wonder, like, if you look back to when you were first starting out in this industry, mm-hmm. and what is it like to work your way up in this field to where you are now as a supervisor on a film like Shang-Chi, working in the MCU, which I would say would be a dream for so many people, particularly artisans and the creatives who put together these films. What is actually that like? Is it a dream come true? Is it something that you always aspired to?
It's kind of, yes. I mean, it's always something you hope to achieve in your life. And I don't know, I think it's just, I've kind of always had a passion for art. I fell into the visual effects side of things through university. I started trying out computer science and marketing and things that were kind of interesting but not necessarily fun. And then there was I found a course that did 3D animation, and it just kind of hooked me. And I actually spent during the Kong days, during King Kong, I worked as a security guard on the King Kong sets. And every night I would drag in my computer, CRT monitor and all, and do my rounds, and in between that kind of work on my showreel. And after like 6 months or so, Weta Productions was hiring, and I got involved. And from there, working my way up from an ATD, or assistant lighting TD, all the way up to visual effects supervisor, has been a long but extraordinarily rewarding journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. Especially, you kind of made your start in the MCU as the lighting extraordinaire, and it's just so interesting to me that you're now talking about this film on an Oscar shortlist where the lighting and the way that the palette looks, particularly at Tarlo, is so brilliantly done. And I think a lot of that has to do with you, mate. So thank you for your time. Good luck at the Bake Off, and I hope to see you on that red carpet, whether it's virtual or in real life.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.